Okay, what was the question, Sanjay? Or
You
you
just
good?
drag it onto the canvas.
You could just like
Yeah, you just drop the JPEG file to the Photoshop.
yeah, or you could just open. Yeah, go to File, open, and then just find that file. All right, so I'll start with some basics about Photoshop and things like that you're going to want to pay attention to. So obviously, this area here is your kind of canvas, what you're going to be working on, where the sketch is. The next, I would say, most important thing is going to be your layer panel. So this is going to be where you can create, they call them layers, where you can put color on them, and kind of the benefit of that is that you can add color to a layer and it won't mess with your original drawing. So like say, and there's some shortcuts I'll tell you. B is brush, which I use a lot, so I'll just hit B. So now I have my brush. So say I don't create a new layer and I want to make this blue cube and I go start shading in the side. This isn't how I'm going to do it, but now that has like totally altered my shape. So if I wanted to erase it, it's going to erase everything. So that's what you don't want to do. You want to come over here and where this little page thing is, create a new layer. So now I go back to my brush, I start drawing my color on it, and then I go to erase it, and it preserves what's behind it. So that's really important. There's also some cool things you can do with layer blending styles, which is going to be this drop-down bar right here. So the thing I use the most often is multiply. And the second most often one I do is probably overlay. But if you go to multiply, what you can see, I'll go back a second. Okay, so see how this blue is breaking this line on the bottom here?
Yeah.
If I multiply it, it's going to kind of show both, essentially. So it kind of makes it darker, but you can see both still. So why doesn't everyone make new layer?
How do you remove the blue line after you make it?
How do I remove it?
Control Z and
Control Z.
I keep pressing Command Z on Mac. I made this line, and I can you were deleting.
How do you increase the size of the brush?
So Sanjay's got a question. How do you increase the size of the brush? The easiest way is to go up to the top here, and there's a slider for both size and hardness. So if you have it totally soft, it's going to give you... oh, that was for my eraser. So if it's all the way hard, it's going to give you really like crisp lines. And conversely, if it's all the way on the other end of the spectrum, 0%, it's going to give you a really like fuzzy kind of line, which is typically kind of the way to go.
So I created a layer. John, what's the other like layer blending option you said?
Overlay, and I use that more with white.
How do you extend it to the picture?
Oh. Yeah, it kind of brightens it up. It starts like this. He's done it.
So what is? Oh
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking.
I don't need this thing.
So that's just kind of more advanced options. I would look for go to here. Oh, here. Where it says
Oh,
20.
did you create a layer?
Picture,
Yeah, that's all. And then I think we'll
overlay
color
on it, only the
Maybe
dark
do
area,
that.
on it or something. Whatever.
and the white will remain white.
Okay, so it's in these.
And then just click on this. No, where it says 13.
Let's see.
Yeah, so that should give you the round.
And then make it like
Where's multiply
50
again?
or something.
Adding multiply.
So if you're in the layer panel, it's going to be, okay, click on the layer that you want, and then it'll be where normal is. It's got a bunch of different
Hide
options.
it. Hide it. Pick this
And
eye.
multiplies like the fourth option. So Sanjay had
Oh.
a good question about the brushes.
But the eraser should be hard. Full hard.
What's that?
The eraser.
What's that?
The eraser.
The area?
The eraser.
Eraser?
Eraser. Yeah, like should it be full hard or soft?
It just depends on what you want to do.
Oh, because it goes
Yeah.
through the line twice.
For 25 it goes into hard.
Oh, this
Yeah, so you can make it.
So to darken it, that's all you have to do.
You probably want to
I can fit this video one. Just even darker.
Like
I close it before.
Yeah, I would just go for that.
So, how do you do it? Just like copy paste?
Drag
Yeah,
this
it looks
video
like your opacity is not fully up.
This cube where it says cube, right?
Right click. Right click.
This is
Drag
faster.
it, drag it here. This is faster. This is faster.
Why is
You
it
should
not
understand how to do
Drag
it.
this.
Sheldon, how's it going?
to here?
There is a buffer that is real.
The longer you like 15-20 layers, then you can't do that. Then you look for every layer.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
So now if I multiply, oh,
This
it's
can
darker.
be done.
Yes. Oh, that's why you said you don't have to have a dark sketch. Ah. I understand. Yesterday we were talking about this, right?
I don't think you're.
So I was like,
And
what?
that one is.
Ah.
Not trying.
Oh, this is.
Yeah. I don't know what that was.
See, my lines are darker than yours. I'm better
So that's
than
where like that.
you just create like so you
Okay.
the picture you
How we doing?
make a copy of it and
Nice.
overlay
should we
it.
just color the whole thing?
Don't color the whole thing yet, because I'm gonna make it easier.
Is there an opposite of overlay? Is there like a thing that can make you draw on the lightest part?
So, yeah, like screen is kind of the opposite of multiply.
Screen?
Screen is more about the light stuff, but you guys don't need to worry too much about those blending modes just yet.
Okay.
So, okay. So the most important thing right now is that you have the sketch, you have a blank layer on top of it, and then Sanjay asked a point about brushes. So I always use like a round brush. So if you don't have a round brush, go up to your kind of brush menu up top here, and just pick one of the circles. Like you don't want to pick one of these paintbrush looking things. So does everyone have kind of a round circle as their brush? Yeah? Okay. All right, so we ready? Okay. All right, next up is to go here, the third tool down on the bar, and it's called a lasso tool, and I use the polygonal lasso tool. So can everyone find that? Okay. Yeah, L is a shortcut you can get there. It might give you just the straight up lasso tool, which,
Can you just click multiple times and then go?
what's that?
Or if you click multiple times, L it will not change.
Oh, it cycles through or does not?
It's not like
You press the button, you hold your mouse, and it will show
Yeah,
you.
hold, if you hold down on it, it'll give you more
So
options.
you said polygonal.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so everyone's there? Okay, so now we're going to go to our shape, and it makes nice straight lines, and we're working with a shape that has nice straight lines, so it kind of makes it easy. And you're just going to trace the whole outside of the shape. And then let me know when you're there.
On your final point, you'll see a small circle next to the arrow. That's when you know you're completing your shape.
So another thing to point out is you guys can see what's called marching ants, and that lets you know where your selection is currently. If you accidentally have caps lock, oh wait, doesn't caps lock turn it on and off?
No. You want to switch it off?
Is it H?
Control H.
Control
Ah,
H.
HP.
Okay. Okay, yeah. If it's off, like I still have it selected. If you don't see it after you do it, hit Command H. I think it used to be. Did it used to be caps lock? Or?
Control H.
It was always A. Oh, caps lock hides your tools.
It
And,
just becomes one cross every.
right. Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay. So we have these marching ants. We have our selection. Now we're gonna fill in this shape nice and easily. If you hit G, it should bring up this paint bucket. And it may do a gradient tool, so you might have to do the same thing where you hold down over that icon and make sure you have paint bucket.
Paint bucket.
So then pick a color. You can pick from here. You can kind of double click on your color you have selected down here. Customize your color if you'd like. I'm just going to go with this blue that we've got. And then click inside. And you've painted your whole thing. And then I'm going to go and make sure I have it on multiply so I can still see my lines.
Which one? Oh, okay. The
It's
paint
still
bucket.
the marching ants.
Yeah,
you'll
still have marching ants, and to get rid of those, and to also like delete your or to lose what you have selected, just hit Command D or Control D, which is deselect. Okay. We can catch you up when.
Oh, we just did a lasso to get the outline and fill in.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
I
so that's
thought
it.
usually lasso was to like crop things.
No, we're not cropping. We were just getting that selection area to fill in, and that's a lot easier than trying to paint it by brush and then erase or whatever.
Could use it to crop it.
Oh. I usually thought this lasso was only for. I never explained.
Yeah, it's for like selecting certain.
Okay, you guys ready?
Oh,
Keep moving.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's make another layer. And then what we're going to do next is lighten up this top of the box. So a quick way to kind of use the same selection that we've already done is to hit Command or Control and click on the little image of your previous layer. Command or Control, depending on your system. And then hit the little thumbnail of your previous layer. And if you never hit deselect, you'll still have it selected, but that's a quick way to use any layer that you've done to kind of get the selection of that layer. Everyone good with that? Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my lasso tool, so I'll hit L.
So
And
by doing that, you created a new layer, right?
no, you have to create a new layer. By clicking that, I just got the selection of that previously painted part.
Okay.
So you want to be working on a new layer. Make sure like your new layer selected.
I mean, here it looks like two layers are selected at the same time. Is that how it
It can happen like that. Just click on one layer. Yeah. So you just want to click on there.
looks? Like three now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that-
Oh.
Okay, you guys good? Shall it?
Yeah, I just couldn't tell the difference if I did it correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, even.
Okay, so now basically what that did was let me get my back edges really quickly and easily without having to retrace that with the tool. So now I'm back into my lasso tool and I'm going to hit Alt. So you can see the lasso gets a little minus sign next to it when you hit Alt. So I hold it down and basically what that does is I'm going to be able to erase some of this selection, like from my selection. So I'm tracing these top lines first, and then I'll go down around. And everyone, make sure you kind of see what I'm doing because I'm about to. What's that? It is option. Sorry. So I've got my edge that I want. I've gone around the bottom of the shape, and then I'm going to close the loop here. And now I just have selected the top layer. Now we're going to go back to our.
Is there a way you can go back like one step after your lasso backspace? Oh.
Also, I have a question. Why couldn't you just like use the lasso tool to select the top rather than going around?
So you can.
Is it okay?
So basically what I was doing was using the previous selection. So I wanted these two back lines that I'd already done.
Yeah.
So that's
You
what.
stay there. Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I could. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do
No,
the
I
same thing in
understand.
Photoshop.
And one question, like,
yeah.
are you modifying the original, like if you go still back to layer 4 and do control, command click, you'll see the
It'll
original-
still.
original
yeah.
full thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
It'll show the whole thing. Yeah. So, and that works on really complex layers and things like that. You can, I mean, Photoshop will do its best to understand what you're trying to get, and it usually does pretty good. But yeah, that will always be preserved. So that's just a quick way to kind of use work you've already done. Okay, so now I'm on my new layer. I have my new selection. I just have the top. I'm going to go choose white. And a way you can do that quickly is if you hit D and then X. So D makes your little palette in the bottom here just black and white. And X flops which one you're using. So if you ever want to get to white or black quickly, that's a way to do it. D? I don't know why it's D.
What does D
Default
stand for,
colors,
man?
maybe? I don't know.
Default.
D for
D
default color
default.
palette.
Yeah, default.
X for what?
And then, so we're going to go back to hit G, and we get our paint bucket tool, and we're going to paint that top. And then I am going to go to overlay. Oh, wait. Not overlay, screen. And one final step that you do here is right next to the blending styles, where you get screen and multiply and all that, there's an opacity slider. And you're going to hit that drop down and slide it. I'm going to slide it to about 40%.
What does this screen do?
Screen is kind of like the opposite of multiply. So I use screen when I'm doing white colors, light colors, and I use multiply when I'm doing others. Because if you that's a good question. Because if you multiply with white, it's just going to do nothing. Like it blends it so you don't see the white anymore. So you either want to kind of leave it default or do screen. So
See the marching and what should I do?
Control D.
Command.
Yeah, Command D.
So
And
it's
then
basically adding white to the blue and therefore softening it.
yeah. And is everyone good to move on? Mohammed? Good? Okay. All right, so we're basically going to do the same thing again, but we're going to do, let's darken up the right side here. So, does anyone want to guess what we do next?
Multiply.
No, we just make the lasso tool first.
No.
No.
Not lasso tool, not multiply next.
Oh, create a layer.
Create a layer. Then what?
Then select layer you did first,
Yep.
and then subtract that face.
Yeah, so what Corey said. So we're going to hit Command, click our thumbnail from our original selection. And there's actually a cool thing you can do once you've got that. So the same way we used Alt to delete stuff, we can do the same thing here. So we have this main layer, right? This like hexagon of blue, and then we have the top layer. So we can select this all blue, and then we can quickly take out that top layer by just hitting Command, Alt, and clicking that previous layer. So that takes out that shape, and now we only have one more shape to cut out.
Okay, so one more quick question. Like, I have these. This is different from what I see in yours.
Oh, yeah, that's control. Transform it.
Oh yeah, you hit Control D.
You have to go back to the selection and get
You just go to command and D, right? This one, right?
Yeah, like that. Why did you do that?
Sure, uncheck this box.
Oh, that's
And then you know what to do next, right?
like Alt, command, and then D.
Alt Command. Yep.
What does that do again? Can you repeat the alt command alt part?
So Alt is going to delete something.
Yeah.
Command, clicking on the icon, selects something, right?
Yeah.
So when you do Alt, it subtracts it. So we've got our original shape, and then we've deselected the top part by
Okay.
hitting Command Alt.
Oh.
So it's just a way to do it more quickly. I mean, you could just as well
Oh,
re-lasso everything, but this is just a lot faster. It's easier.
okay.
So now we just have one side to delete. So this is really easy. We go back to our lasso. We hit Alt, and we just kind of line up with this line here, and then take off that face.
But that doesn't go from up and from one to exactly the same height. It won't select it.
Everyone got that?
This one, started at this point, right? Yeah. So you see the circle? I think this one leading you.
Mess up a little bit.
Oh, you have to undo it. It's just undo control command. Command
So
Z.
basically, make a straight line from the thing. Click out, and make a
Try and
straight
go
line.
around that point and
Oh, sorry. I think you should
Yeah.
out, and then just like go around it.
Yep.
The thing didn't turn like the round thing.
Okay, so Sartok brings up a good point where let me redo this kind of selection. Okay, so once I get into my lasso here and I hit Alt and I'm kind of taking this face off, I can just go here. Okay, so like from here, I know that a straight shot to my start point will complete the shape well. So I can just double click. I don't have to get back to that point.
Oh,
Okay, so Corey, what do we do next?
We're gonna darken it.
Darken it. Okay, perfect. So we go to our layer, hit multiply. I'm just going to use black and fill it in, hit G for the paint bucket, fill it in, and then turn my opacity down.
Capacity, I think 40.
Just whatever looks right. It's going to kind of depend on your color. Yeah, I would put it on there. So you guys see how that kind of like you use that same base tone and you can do different things to it to imply that light's hitting it differently and it kind of makes it a little more three-dimensional. So really, I mean, that's the basic of what we're doing. I think a couple extra nice steps are we can add some white lines to the edges to kind of imply that light's hitting it. We can also add a shadow. So I'm going to do another layer.
So can we make a gradient?
Yeah.
Like, so it's real dark at the bottom and it gets lighter as it goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a way to do that is that same tool. We just go to gradient, and then you can, I always forget, okay, that's the wrong way. So you just kind of overlay it like that. And that comes into, that becomes really useful in some, I might have a round one on. No, that looks a little weird.
That's fine.
So that becomes like pretty useful too when you're doing, Corey, like if you have like a rounded surface and you're doing like a transition, over a fillet or something, gradients become really nice.
Where do you define gradient colors?
What's that?
Where do you define the gradient colors?
Gradient colors. So if you go to the gradient,
Oh, it's up there.
yeah, you can double click on it and it becomes a slider. I just typically, unless I'm doing something really high fidelity, I would just do black to nothing. It's not really black to white, it's black to invisible. And that allows you to kind of quickly throw shade on there without like having to worry too much about it.
Pick this color. Click here. That's fine. Click on this.
Oh, like can I go back control? Doing control Z, control Z.
Yeah.
Is that one step, though?
It's Command Option Z goes back more than one.
No, because it's a different layer. Switch this. Just switch it.
How to read it?
I always just go to Edit, Step Forward. I guess it's Shift Command Z.
The opacity, it's not. It looks like really. It doesn't look right. Meaning like this is really blue and this is really purple.
Yes, that depends on your color.
Okay.
What your color.
Okay. So
Don't
if,
worry about that. You right now you just get this is how it works and this is how you darken or lighten.
okay.
So, how's everyone doing? Okay.
Are we gonna do the white line?
Yeah.
How to do the white lines.
So create another layer. And get a brush. And I have mine, it depends on the size of your canvas, but I have mine at 16 pixels and 0% hardness. And I have my color is white.
It also depends on what brush you had initially. Because John had a soft brush right from the start.
Mhm.
Zero hardness. If you have a hard brush with zero hardness, it won't really do much. So switch to a soft brush.
You said the color is white.
I have it at 16, but you can adjust if you need to. Color white.
So press B.
So the red color is like the one.
Yeah. So yeah, brush color is here. Whatever's on top of those two.
You can gel brushes. Yeah, soft brush.
I think
So what is the
you-
point of the
I-
second color?
I
Like
think
the black
you
one?
can
Is
do
that like
That's like, so if you're kind of working in two colors, right? You have them at your fingertips always. And you can like create swatches up in this where's my mouse? Up in this area. So you could have like 100 colors that you can easily access, but if you're like doing a design that's blue and white only, just keep them there and then keep hitting X to kind of
like Illustrator is like the outlines like
Right,
color,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
This is different from that.
this is different, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, that one.
Brush tool. Brush tool. Right hand. On the canvas. On the canvas. Right
Cool. Is everyone ready to do the lines? Okay.
Oh,
So
do we need to do the gradient?
need to do what?
The gradient?
No, you don't need to do the gradient. That was just Corey had a question about that.
I need all the things back on here.
What the hell did you do?
I don't know.
Just disable your toolbar.
I think I clicked on. I didn't. I don't know. How to like? Yeah, it's only coming like.
Go to workspace. So if you draw things, you
You
can
know
use
the workspace?
workspace.
Okay. So another cool thing you can do is shift making 2 points while holding shift will create a straight line. So basically, I'm going to click down onto the vertex here. And then, so you see a tiny little white dot, right? And then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to hold down shift and click again. So click the vertex, hold shift, click your next point.
Or easy like this.
Okay, click
Convert.
shift and click next point or
Yeah.
all the-
Just click the next point while you hold shift.
Oh,
And then if everyone's good with that, you can continue that process and do for all 3 of the lines.
oh, you did only these 3 ones.
What's
Not
that?
the ones in the bottom.
Yeah, just the 3.
Oh,
So basically the theory is
Why
If-
is it disappearing?
if a surface turns into another
Yeah, so
surface,
the brushes-
it's going to have a really light line. If a surface has nothing behind it, it's going to have a dark outline.
Meaning like,
When you do right now.
So the ones theoretically like the 6 sides around the out would be dark, and the ones that you can see like transitioning on surfaces are really light. Because that's where, in reality, like light hits an edge and it catches that light. Yeah. So if you're
this
So
is
the,
this
What?
movie,
so the convention is the white line indicates it's.
But I will just change your brush.
the white line indicates
Or
that
extend your-
it's
when you
it
click
has
on
like
the
another
vertex, you click
surface
further down.
attached to it.
Oh,
You when you click
So-
down, just click down.
So these lines here, all this around here has nothing behind it. So those would be dark. And something where, you know, like here, this is a perfect example. Look how bright white that is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
compared to the rest. That's just how light works.
okay.
Yeah.
But that's my favorite.
So once you have all 3 lines,
okay.
just adjust down the opacity because these are pretty extreme. So about 50% kind of implies that light's hitting it.
Could you still see the dark line?
Yeah, you can see it a little bit. And what you can do, so if you like built this sketch up to the point, like to a really high fidelity, you could come down here, turn off your sketch, and you actually still have like all your color and your shape. You know, I would probably do some more to this, like have some outlines around the outside and things like that, but you'll be able to see it. So this is just kind of a lo-fi way of suggesting these lines, but it's not perfect.
So
Um,
once you have drawn these lines, right, can you edit those points?
How do you mean? Like move them?
Like move them a little bit, like, you know.
Not really. Like it's not like a vector. I mean, you could like control transform them, but they would all move together.
Try again.
Yeah.
It's not like, you know,
So
you don't have
when you
points.
click, so you
No,
don't
yeah,
click
these
fully.
you'd have to do paths to do that. These are just kind of like painted lines, like
This is
pixels.
the brush.
Yeah.
This is history brush.
This one.
Okay, and then the final thing we'll do on this one is add a shadow.
Is it this one then?
So is everyone ready? Sartak, are you a little behind? Jack, how are you doing?
I'm a little blind now.
Okay. Good? Okay. So create one more layer. And what we're actually going to do is move it down in the tree below the blue layer, but above the sketch layer. So it's going to be our second layer in the tree. And you can just click and drag that.
Say that again.
Create a new layer. It'll automatically go to the top here. And then you just click and drag it, put it below your color layer. So it'll probably be your second layer from the bottom. Is everyone good? Sanjay?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we're going to get our trusty lasso back. And we're going to start at the kind of bottom corner here and just kind of go back a reasonable amount. Just kind of what I've done here. Then this next line will be about parallel to that bottom edge. And then this one should be about parallel to this line back here. And what you can actually do for this one, you don't have to get it exactly to this back line. You can bring it as far as you want into the shape. Click that last part and then double click. Oops. Because this is going to be under that blue shape. So it doesn't matter if the shape's imperfect. Or, we can also do our Command Alt and click that blue layer and just select it out anyway.
I double clicked, but it started from this point.
Hit escape. See if that
Oh yeah, once I hit this.
Okay, so you guys good on that? And actually, I'm not going to select out that shape because here's something else that I sometimes like to do is I go up to Select, Modify, and Smooth. And put a couple, maybe put 3 pixels in there. Probably more than that. Let's try 10. Okay. So I did 10, and then again go to Select, Modify, and Feather, and we'll try 15 on that.
That would give you the rough edges.
It rounds it out a little bit, so like with a shadow, it's not going to be as sharp.
How do you
So you get the selection, and then you go up to the top toolbar, Select, Modify, and then I did Smooth, and I did 10 pixels, and I did Feather with 15.
So is the feather rounding? The feather is rounding it out, right? The smooth is rounding it out.
The what?
The smooth is rounding it out. What is the feather doing?
It makes the edge have a little bit of gradient on it, so like literally it feathers it out. So it goes from black to white, or black to nothing, smoothly. Like once you put the color in.
Won't be a sharp, defined
feather?
line.
How much pixel feather?
Feather, I think I did 15.
He's trying to make a shadow here. So shadows usually don't have a very defined line. They have a slight fade. And that's what he's trying to do.
What is this?
Okay.
Smooth kind of takes the sharp edge and gives it a round.
Oh, this is like a filler.
Yeah. So we can do a couple different ways here. We can go back to Paint Bucket, or we could do Gradient. I'll just do Paint Bucket to start, make it black, and then fill it in. And let's see, is that on multiply? Okay, yeah. And opacity. Oh, oops, this one.
Should we multiply?
Okay, so go, if you have your main shape layer, the hexagon on multiply, put it back to normal.
Mine is on
What's
Take
that?
it on the blue, the one above it. Yeah.
But this has to be on normal.
Yeah.
So how's everyone doing with that?
But it does. Mine's very dark.
Yeah. So reduce the opacity.
Or just the opacity.
Yeah, of that layer. No, not that. Not the blue, the black layer.
Uh,
The new layer you created.
Oh.
For the shadow. Yeah. So
Oh.
reduce the opacity.
Oh.
So everyone good with that? Because I have one more step.
I want to add something to that.
Oh, sure.
In case your blue layer, your hexagon wasn't on if you don't want to convert it to multiply, you can actually just select that hexagon layer using control and clicking on your thumbnail, and then go to your shadow layer and just press delete. So that much of the shadow layer will be deleted. You can do that as well.
So it will like an intersection.
Yeah. So it will
Yeah.
just end at where your blue hexagon layer starts.
So like, what did you do to make that effect like the shadow? Like, was like as a normal, right?
what is the opacity you use? 80?
For the shadow?
Shadows
Yeah.
normal.
Normal.
Yeah, about
I
80.
don't have that feather yet.
Yeah, actually, I think Munchit's suggestion is probably better, so we can have like the interaction with the lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So put let's do what Munchit said. Let's put our color layer back on multiply, and then
Select modify.
click, command click that layer, and then delete that from. Click back on your shadow layer and hit delete. So we take out that part.
Which color layer?
No, I'm not getting it.
That should be normal.
So let's see.
And then what? Oh, that. So then you don't need to remind. So what you do is select the hexagon. You should now basically your black layer is behind this, right? So you want to delete it from this.
How did you
select this control command and
Oh,
command and
You didn't do brush.
okay. So now this part is selected. Now select
Brush
this layer.
kind of over,
The layer you want to delete.
But if you did bucket, I don't know why.
Press D
Because it worked like that.
Yeah.
Just press D. Just simple. And now press delete. Yeah, so the whatever was behind, whatever this layer was behind this layer was deleted.
But it doesn't show though. I did what you said, but it doesn't.
Okay,
You have deleted.
who's ready to move on? Okay. Final step we're gonna do is create a mask. So with our shadow layer selected, go to this little thing that looks almost like a tiny camera
Okay.
and click it. So masks are pretty cool. It's kind of like a way to delete things without deleting them, so you preserve that information. So as you can see, there's like a little thumbnail that comes up beside your thumbnail, and that's your mask layer.
How did you put the mask layer again?
So just click your layer and then go to this little thing that looks like a camera icon almost down at the bottom of your layer bar and click it. Make sure that you have nothing selected when you hit the mask. So hit Control Z, hit Control D to deselect, and then create your mask. So what mask can do is when you draw with black on your mask, it's like erasing, and when you draw with white, it brings it back. You guys get that? And you can also look at your mask and seeing what it's like by clicking it while you hit Alt. But we don't really need that right now. So once you have your mask, what we can do is go to the gradient, which is under the G, which is under the paint bucket here. And then you click kind of like from far away and bring it toward the front, and it lightens it up and kind of gives it that, like, you know, when you're closer to the object, it's darker type effect. And this might be a little extreme, I think.
Do you have to like click alt or anything, or just make a straight line?
Click on the layer. Click on the layer you want to mask. Yeah, click on that.
Oh. What mask does is to inverse like black and white.
What's that?
You don't really get what mask does.
So mask is just a way to delete
So,
some information while you still preserve it.
So click on the.
So anything that's black on your mask is going to be deleted. Anything that's white will be preserved, like will be
Is it
shown.
the gradient in that under it?
Okay.
And then
Okay.
anything that's like a gray will be that kind of calculation of what's shown or hidden. So let me just show you again while like.
Yeah, I got it the fact. I was just trying to like rationalize.
Okay. So here, I'll just show you this just so you can see. So like, I'm working in black on this mask, and I do that, okay? So black takes it away, and when I hit Alt and that, I can see what my mask actually is.
Oh,
So we switched.
Oops.
After the fact, can I change the brush color
Of what?
of this shadow? I was just like, I feel like this is too dark.
So you
black
have
will
to.
make it white, white will make it black.
adjust your opacity for the whole layer.
Oh, okay. Because
Might
this is a
actually
mask.
make it whatever it is.
Ah,
Why is my whole
oh, okay, okay, okay.
mask turning black when it's gradient?
So, enjoy your
The whole thing turns black.
directly. You just need to
Up here, so let's see if you have like and click on that one. Second. This
But
one, yeah.
this we don't know because
Yeah, I don't know why
it's
that
actually the
was
same
like, but it
difference.
was
When you get the
all
more
black.
detailed
So
stuff,
see this.
but getting simple stuff we look at it is really.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So that's pretty much part one. I want to show you guys a couple more things about just like how to work with Photoshop, and then Munchit can get into part two. So is everyone ready to see a couple more things? Okay. So I don't think I'll get to the cylinder, but if you guys want to open this rounded cube one, you don't have to close it. You can leave it open if you want. It's up to you.
File open.
File new.
Oh, file.
Or just find it in your downloads and open with Photoshop or drag it in.
I use letter and 300 pixel. 300 resolution.
300 resolution, right?
I just drag that picture on this.
Oh, you want to apply texture to it?
I'll show you that, and I want to show you kind of rounded selections. And if you turn on, so while I was looking ahead, but if you turn on the original layer, the top layer, that's my cell phone picture. So I thought it'd be useful to see how to get from that to this.
Yeah.
So does everyone have this open, or you still need a minute? Does anyone not have this open?
I have the original, like this one. You want this?
Yeah, so turn on. You can turn on the top layer.
Oh,
I don't see.
Yeah, I guess I didn't mention you can hit the
I see.
eye icon, and that shows or hides the layer, so you can like use the layer.
Yeah, I just dragged it.
You can't drag it.
You gotta open the PSD. Yeah.
Oh, I can just drag the PSD file.
Oh, like
What I
you
did
drag it
was,
to-
no, I did an open new and then I just dragged this here.
Maybe try to drag that to this top bar. Drag from there to up here.
So delete this
No, just don't worry about it. Go back to the.
and drag this like here.
See if that works. Okay. All right. So first step, I'm just gonna assume everyone's here. Is you can either do basically Alt Control or Option Command U. Oops. Wait. Never mind. Disregard. This is all. Okay, we'll just do it this way. Oh. Okay.
Rasterized.
Yeah. Okay. That's why. All right. Double click this layer. Wait. Sorry. Munchit, what's going on?
Control Z. I don't know Z. Right click on the layer. Yeah. Now rasterize.
Okay. Shouldn't, or is that just background layers that I can double click?
You want to change? What do you want to
rasterize?
make it white?
Yeah. So
Oh,
I need to
so-
rasterize.
Rasterize.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry about that. Right click on the layer, and then find rasterize, and click that.
There's a trick also.
What is it?
Take your razor, click on the center. It will give you an option to rasterize.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. So once it's rasterized,
how do you know this right?
So you want to rasterize now. So this layer, you see this layer? It's not rasterized. You see the small content within the
Oh,
that means it's not rasterized.
so do Command Shift U, and basically what that does is take out all the color and makes it grayscale.
So that
And you can also find that by going to Image Adjustments and Desaturate.
one more thing I can do. Press Control L.
Oh, for levels?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just make it white.
Yeah.
Is it the same as
That's
the drag the saturation all the way down to 0?
it would be the same, yeah.
Okay.
It's just a quick way to take out all the saturation. Yeah, so then next is Command L. And that's going to be levels. So what you see, that little histogram there is showing you how much basically gray and black and white there is. So what we want to do is take the rightmost slider and move it toward that kind of area of color.
Just minimizing how much white is.
So this is taking out the dark stuff.
Dark.
Yeah. And then you can go from the other side too.
Only like having those, they're kind of filtering out all the white.
What's that?
It's like kind of filtering all the other stuff that black.
Yeah. So is everyone good with that? So there's other things you could do too. You can do curves, which is kind of similar, and you can play around with this curve to kind of get exactly how you want it. You can also kind of create a new layer on top of it, or conversely do a mask
No, it's fine.
and erase out some of this noise.
Yeah, it's fine.
How do you get the curve?
Curve is in image adjustments, curves or Control M.
Oh, okay. Levels or command?
Command L or Command M, they both basically do the same thing. Curves is kind of more guesswork for me, I guess. Like I just kind of move it and see how it looks. But yeah, so you can create a mask too, and then kind of brush away some of this noisy stuff. But that's how, I mean, that's a quick way to make your crappy cell phone picture look decent and kind of make a nice spot to work from. And then the only other thing I wanted to show you guys before I take it over to Munchit, and he might actually have a different method of doing this, but on the first one we kind of made those lasso selections, which were really easy, right? They were exact straight lines. So I created this one with some curves in it to see how we would approach that. And one way you can do it is get that polygonal lasso again. And what you're going to do is kind of make these little steps. So
Should we do a new layer?
you don't, I mean, I'm just showing you the selection. If you wanted to color it, yeah, you'd make a new layer. But basically, so you kind of make these steps and trace it as well as you can. As many kind of little points as it takes. And then what you can do is go back to what we used before, modify selection, and smooth it out. And this is a lot of times like guesswork, like how much is really going to give you that smooth look? Is it going to make your corner like too soft, like where you actually want the hard edges? So you might have to kind of build shapes back together, but it kind of gives you a nice smooth area, smooth selection, and then let's see how it looks. So that's not too bad. I mean, it's actually pretty jaggedy still, so I'd want to go back and do more. Select modify smooth. Maybe 30 is better. And it's honestly still a little weird looking, but it might have been my original selection. Wasn't very great.
So when do we use this magnetic lasso?
Use what?
Magnetic lasso.
That's when you want to trace a path which is already made. You just go around it and just trace that entire path and select that. But in this case, it's easier for you to do it on the rightmost edge. But you see the center edges, there are two lines very close to each other, so it can't really differentiate between the two, so it keeps shifting between them, so it's not good. a single line is good to use, if not totally.
So I can show you really quick kind of use for that, Sanjay. So I'm just going to copy this picture. Paste it in. And then, so I can use this magnetic lasso. Should do a better job on an application like this of kind of tracing me. And it's not perfect, but it does an okay job.
So in this case, if the background was very different from his shirt color, you're taking the line with more accuracy, more contrast will give you more accuracy. That's the only drawback of this. But otherwise, very easy to use and helpful sometimes.
Like even this one which just goes off, you can always come back and like.
Yeah.
If backspace, it comes back to your point where you want.
Another cool thing you can do if you wanted to, like, for an application like this, is you can use a magic wand or quick selection tool, either one. So quick selection tool, I can kind of go in here and it just it kind of messed up there, but so this might not be a great example, but it can usually tell kind of what you're going for.
The shirt color kind of matches.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's too close to the background, but
Maybe click on your blue stripe, that will give them an idea of how it works.
Yeah.
So you can just delete that blue stripe by pressing delete after selecting it.
Wait, how do you do that?
Magic wand.
The curves, if you have curves like this, the original thing you're showing, just try to make as much as possible, try to trace that curve. And then
Yeah.
use the smooth curve.
yeah, exactly. And it's kind of a guess and check thing where, like, you could actually do a really, like, square thing and then go do smooth and it'll give you rounded edges at whatever, like, radius of the amount of pixels you put in. But it's kind of guess and check. I mean, I don't have a better systematic way to do that.
Like what happens if you have only like this edge is like really sharp.
Yeah.
But these are smooth, like curves.
Right.
So how can you apply
So-
the whole smooth for those?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was hinting at earlier. In that scenario, oops, I'm on the magnetic.
And I'll get to that when I use a slightly different method.
Yeah, so, like, if you have kind of smooth and then sharp, I guess what I would do is I would smooth it out so one side's smooth, and then go back and hit with my polygonal lasso tool. I would hit Shift and add back in that corner. So, like, you make a selection, and then, you know, say you need to add this space back in. You hit Shift, and you can kind of add a corner back in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's how I would do it. Munchin might have a better way.
That's a shift in like adding.
Yeah. It's kind of the opposite of the alt.
Alt.
Yeah. And then, Munchin, I have this, like, are you going to do anything like this, or should I was just going to show him how to use that type of thing.
I mean, as a background and just highlights over it.
To, like put it onto a surface.
Yeah, sure, do that.
Okay. So one last thing I have in there, and we're going to want to rasterize this layer as well and turn it on, is this shape. This kind of brushed aluminum or stainless steel, whatnot, finish. And then we want to multiply that. Rasterize, turn on, and multiply. And then, so, like, if we wanted to do this side here in a kind of brush finish, what we would do is hit Command T or Control T, and that allows us to modify this shape. And so then you can hit Command and grab a point and start, like, pulling it into perspective.
I got like when I hit Command T, previous layer selection was like, oh, maybe I should unselect.
Yeah, unselect that
Uh,
session.
Do we have to change the shape to that kind of?
Yeah, so basically we're like following the lines of the perspective just so that texture makes sense
Okay.
and kind of follows the perspective as well.
How did you make that into perspective? Just the points.
or good.
Yeah, exactly. Just you can see the grain of the texture. Just
Okay, yeah, you're good. So now you have the command before you touch that. Yeah. And then you hit that.
Yeah, simplicity. Ash tries it first. Right, you first.
Yeah.
And Ash tries. Now, no, not that. You said this. This is yeah. Now this is the command.
Oh, like mask it.
Exactly. Now you create a mask on there, or actually,
You have something there.
I'm not going to do this perfectly because I want to get to Munchit's part, but I'm going to quickly lasso out this shape. And it's going to look a little jagged, but that's okay. And then once you hit mask, it does it automatically for you.
Oh, so do the thing first, lasso first.
Lasso first, and then once you have your selection good, hit mask, and it masks it out.
Escape. So once I was like doing all the free transform, I hit escape, it just went away.
To get your like perspective. Yeah.
You had drawn something on that by mistake.
You're just gonna.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what do you compare?
So what?
Oh,
And there should be like
So
somewhere up on this bar when you're doing it. There should be like
check mark.
Yeah.
Command, like how do you feature command T, right?
Yeah. Command T for a free transform. And that should about do it for this part. And then Munchit's gonna blow your minds, Tim Fletcher style.
Jim, let's just start.
Is everyone good if I disconnect?